Murph's good. He has been getting treatment, ever since he obviously got back from the game. I think he slipped on a wet spot when he was trying to help Sebastian up. My view was blocked, so I wasn't really able to see it. The knee's better. It's just sore. His hip flexor is kind of more what we're looking into right now, because when Sebastian landed on him, it just, that's a lot of impact on that part of the body. So, I think yesterday he stretched, got shots up, did more of a he'll do more of a basketball workout today, and some light practice today, but still just trying to progress him back slowly. I think initially it was a mild hip flexor strain and a mild knee MCL sprain is kind of what we were looking at. So could have been a whole lot worse. Murph's done an unbelievable job in the off season, and God love him. He's had the injury bug lately, but he's been going at his rehab so hard that the two times that he's actually tweaked it over the last 2 months, I think they could have been a lot worse had he not been putting in so much work in his treatment with Clark and Coach D. So I think it's saved him from something that could have been more serious. But I think he'll practice a little bit today, but we're going to slowly progress him back because we don't play again until next Thursday.
Stephen, how do you think he's responded from the opening exhibition game? What were some things you saw that you didn't like and that you're working on?
Yeah, I thought guys responded well. That team had three really, really explosive guards, and they had a couple guards that didn't play. And I think, after talking to the coaches and a few others, I think that helped those guys because they got to play 35 minutes and just kind of got to go out there and just play, as opposed to having to worry about rotations. We played 11 guys in that scrimmage, which we said we would. And, offensively, couple positives that stick out. Obviously we got to the foul line a lot. I thought, we have 4 or 5 guys that I think can get by their men and, create opportunities for themselves and others, but also get to the foul line. So we got to the line a good bit. When we ran offense, I think we scored 1.24 points per possession, which, is really good. When we didn't run offense, it was like 0.79 or something like that. So it was good for our guys to be able to see, listen, when we run stuff within our system, we're getting really good looks. But then on top of that, if you look at, I think we had 18 offensive rebounds, like 80 to 85% of our offensive rebounds came off of stuff when we ran offense. And the reason why that's important is because when you run offense, where shots are going to be shot in the offense, so you can go get those rebounds. But when you just take a random shot out of the offense, you don't have good offensive rebounding position. So it was good for our guys to, one, see that when we do run good stuff, we get good shots and, we convert on those things. But then, two, if you miss those shots, we have somebody there to rebound to bail you out. So that was really positive. Didn't shoot it great from the foul line. We missed 14 free throws, and a lot of our best free throw shooters got to the foul line. Elijah missed 3, Tahad missed a couple, Keyshawn Hall missed a couple. So, we got our best players to the foul line. We just got to continue to convert and stay locked in those areas. We call them hush shots. We took too many hush shots where you take a shot and you're like, huh? And, we got to cut those down. But here's the deal. Like, you expect that to happen in a scrimmage like that. That was our expectation. Like, we knew that we'd have a lot of those. So really good to learn from that offensively. Defensively, this team is going to have to find creative ways to create turnovers, to get stops, because we don't have the same size that we did a year ago. Last year it was, we're going to keep our men in front and we're going to force guys into tough contested shots. We have the length and the athleticism to contest shots, but we don't have the size to be able to physically keep people out of the lane. So we got to do a much better job of, one, our guards got to be in the gaps a lot more. We were way too hugged up to our men. We weren't in gaps offering any help on the defensive side of the ball. All right, so that's one thing that we got to obviously address. And we've done that the last couple of days in practice, and the guys have responded well to it. Two, we got to be way more impactful in ball screens. We got to try and create offense with our defense. So more blitzing, more running and jumping, just stuff to kind of keep them off balance. And then we got to do a better job of keeping our man in front. We talked about how good they were driving downhill left, and every time they drove downhill left, something good happened. And then we were able to show them in film that every time they drove it right, they either turned it over or they missed the layup. these are all really, really positive things that our guys get to watch on film and say, all right, when we execute, this happens. When we don't execute, obviously something good happens for them. So all really good things for us to learn from. We spent 2 full days of watching film. I think I had like 74 clips on the defensive end, and Burgo probably had 60 something on the offensive end. Guys have responded well. We had a good practice yesterday, so excited to kind of get back at it today.
Just pass it on down. Steve, aside from the basketball stuff, the process of starting early in Birmingham, having a whole essentially game day to kind of replicate what things look like for y'all on the road this season. How helpful was that to get in mid-October?
I mean, as long as we don't have to do SEC media days the morning of as well, I think we'll be okay. It's great because you're playing 2, in my mind, NCAA tournament caliber teams in Oklahoma State and Memphis, and you're doing it, like you said, in a road environment where you get to replicate what it's going to be like life on the road or in a neutral site. So incredibly valuable, from that standpoint, to be able to build the routine and go through pregame warmups and like all the stuff that you really don't think is like that big of a deal, but it's like, there's just a lot of things that early October you're not really like working on yet, and you realize, oh crap, like we got to have a tip play, right? We got who's jumping center, like all things that you don't really get to until November, but it's been great that we've had to put a lot of those things in, late game situations. Hadn't done a ton of practice on that. And yesterday we were able to put in, some of our full court late game sets, and we're going to put in some side OB late game sets and some under OB late game sets. So one of the things that we're going to really work on as part of practice now, and you guys are obviously at practice, is we're going to do late game situations a lot more, just so we're more prepared in those moments. So we're not having to draw something new up every single time. So it was really productive from a coach's standpoint too, to be able to see like all the things that we still have to put in before our first game, on the 3rd against Bethune-Cookman, but also a lot to get ready for with a really good Memphis team next week.
For Mecca, I know has been coming back from injury. Have you seen him these last couple weeks? No, he didn't get to play a ton in the exhibition, but obviously the guy that looks like he's getting healthier and healthier.
Yeah, Meccan, I think he played 2 minutes. The 2 minutes that he played, I thought he did some really good things. Got to be able to give him more of an opportunity to, show what he's capable of. That's on us as coaches. Mec he is a pleaser. Like, he wants to do well, and he wants to be in the right spots and make the right plays, and like he really cares. And sometimes that makes you overthink things at times, and that's one of the things that Mec's continuing to just grow and battle with. And but for him, like you said, like had the back injury and had a few bumps and bruises here and there, so he hasn't really been able to consistently get into a rhythm in practice. Well, now he's finally starting to get back to where he's getting into more of a rhythm. So I'm excited for him to play some more minutes in the Memphis game, just to kind of show what he's got, because he does a few things that not a lot of people can do. He's got unbelievable length around the rim to be able to block shots. And you kind of saw, they called a foul on Kevin, but I think he rotated over and blocked that shot like pretty effortlessly. So once things slow down for him a little bit, I think it'll help. I think he's a step slow on like ball screen coverages and where he's supposed to be in the offense, but he showed this summer when he got into a rhythm, he was much better in those areas, and I think he's close to getting back to that point.
He was present at the game last week. What was kind of his assessment of the team, and did he share anything with you after the game?
Yeah, we talked on the way home, and I gave him a call and just was like, hey, what were some of your thoughts? And he was good. I mean, he said you guys obviously have pieces, and that's really all you can ask for at this point in the year. So a couple things in game that that we kind of talked through. Won't share too much about it, but I think he liked I think he tweeted about it, the zone call at the very end. Our guys did such a good job. I wish we would have played more zone, but I told their coach that we would only play like 5 or 10 possessions of it. So I tried to stick to that as best I could. But we probably should have played 20 possessions of zone, and I think we probably would have won the game if we had done that, just because we couldn't keep our men in front of us. But the zone call at the end of regulation was good. But it was kind of all the stuff I'm talking about. He mentioned all the things that we still got to put in to obviously get ready for Memphis. But saw a lot of positives, and obviously some things that we got to clean up defensively. So obviously it was great to have him there, and glad he got to be a part of it.
Offensively, how much did y'all take from scored 95 without really shooting the ball well from deep, missing some shots free throw. What did that kind of show you about the guys y'all got and kind of the potential for them on offense?
Yeah, no, we definitely have the pieces to put up some real numbers on the offensive end. As long as we didn't get to a breakdown ever in that game. Like if we didn't have something in the flow of our offense, we just took a shot, which was another great thing to learn from. If you don't have anything when we're in transition, or if you don't have anything when we call a play call, like get out and run a ball screen. Like Tahad, Caden, go get the ball. Let's put the ball in your hands, and then let's get into a ball screen at the end of the clock, and then take what the defense gives us, as opposed to forcing a shot up where we have no rebounding position and we can't bail you out. So I think we shot like 37% from the field. We shot 71% from the line, I think, and we still scored 90 something in overtime. So there's a lot of things that give us confidence. I'm not sure how great of a defensive team Oklahoma State's going to be this year, but for us to be able to not shoot great percentages, miss 14 free throws, and be able to score 90 plus, I think this team's got an ability to obviously put some points up this year. But obviously, we still got a lot we got to learn from that film, and a lot we got to clean up on.
I think one or two more.
Leadership-wise, with this being a very new team, who's kind of taken on a big leadership role so far?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at, there's 4 guys that really kind of stick out to me because they've all played high major minutes at this level. You look at Tahad, obviously being the most obvious one, and for him it's just leading by example, and how he goes through practice. And yesterday probably had his best practice in the year and a half that I've been here, or that he's been here, excuse me. Just like doing extra reps, like winning every sprint, using his voice. Like, I think, that was really important to see. So obviously really happy with him. Kevin Overton's a guy from Texas Tech that wants to use his voice, but he's a lot like the old me, where you would use it in a way that could really offend some people, and you gotta tone it down a little bit. And I think that's one area that we just met, and I was like, you like, I'm going through this journey the same as you. Like, I have to do a better job when I use my voice of doing it in a constructive manner. You have to do the same, because the older guys respond well to it, but the younger guys may not. So like, he's a guy that obviously we're going to lean on. Keyshawn Murphy, another guy, that's obviously, has a good voice in the locker room. He's emotional, but in a good way. And I think the guys will lean on him. And then Keyshawn Hall, I've been so impressed with Keyshawn Hall in practice as of late. Just every time, the coaches tell us to bring it in, like, he's like telling guys to run in, and, when there's side conversations going on, he's telling guys to, listen up. Like, he's doing a really good job of doing like some of the small things that leaders really need to do to help a team be successful. So, and then obviously he goes out there and scores 28 in his first game at Auburn. So, really happy with Keyshawn. But those are like the 4 guys that I think can really use their voice to help this team grow this year.